It is a scam when you don't allow everyone to operate on fair terms.
We are the Robin Hoods of sports betting. We take something back from the rich bookies and enable our customers to beat them instead.
Why don't we get into it? It's a very, very exciting fight, this one, for the UFC welterweight title. Usman looking to defend his welterweight title for the third time in a row after that decision win over Masvidal in July last year. And I feel like that was like maybe the first podcast we ever did together, mate. The Usman Masvidal fight in July last year, but I could be completely wrong. I feel like it was the first one we ever talked about.
Yeah, I think maybe I jumped on the football pod, didn't I? And was it Harut and George? I think
maybe. I can't really remember, but anyway, doesn't really matter. Just interesting thing for me and you. And Burns is on a 6-fight win streak, coming off impressive wins in early 2020 against Damian Maia and Tyron Woodley. Everyone was very impressed, I would say, with that win over Woodley by Burns, but it hasn't really aged that well for him, considering Woodley continued to go on a skid after that with his loss to Covington. Not having a crack at Covington. I mean, he's probably the second best welterweight in the world. But maybe that Burns fight not looking as impressed. That Burns win not looking as impressive now.
Yeah, I mean, he still looked pretty good in that fight. Like if you watch that fight, his striking was really good. You know, he was quite tenacious. He didn't really let Woodley have much space. And I've been really impressed with Burns since he's come up to welterweight. Just in general, really, I think his striking in particular looks really good. And then, obviously Woodley's always going to be that KO threat. He's got that big power. But obviously Rory McDonald kind of showed how to beat him, and that was just get in his face and keep pressure. And then Colby Covington's probably, like, after Kamaru Usman, probably the worst matchup for Woodley. And when his confidence is down, he's getting older, that's probably why it looks so bad. But if you stuck him in there with somebody else, I imagine he would look a little better. So I still think it's a credible win. I still think, Burns did a really good job there.
No, definitely, mate. I was just playing devil's advocate, mate. So how do you look at this fight, mate? Because I kind of look at it, if you want to take a real simplistic look at it, you kind of look at it and think Usman probably won't want to go and grapple too much with Burns. One, because Burns has got decent wrestling. I mean, they might cancel each other out. But also Burns' grappling is very, very good. So maybe Usman just wants to keep this on the feet. And then if you look at it from Burns' perspective, he's probably going to find it very hard to take Usman down. I think Usman has 100% takedown defense. So, from a simplistic point of view, would you say that it's most likely going to stay on the feet for most of the 5 rounds?
Maybe. I think Usman will do what he always does, really, and that's, he's probably like one of the best guys in the clinch we've ever seen in MMA. I think, he's like physically, he's just a freak, and he can kind of negate what a lot of people do well just by sticking him up against the fence, like he did with Masvidal, stomping them toes, because he can do that to Burns, and then, like, is Burns really going to jump guard? Like, probably not. And I think he, does he really want to be on his back? Like, I know he's a very credentialed jiu-jitsu practitioner, but if I feel like Usman's going to be a really tough guy to sweep or get anything on just because he's so physically strong. He's got that wrestling background, and I feel like he could just hold position if he wants to. So I don't think Burns is going to do that. I don't think Usman is just going to want to stand with him either, because I think if he stands with Burns, then it's a very, very close fight, to be honest. So I do think he's going to have to do what he does very well, which is, grapple, even if it's just in those clinch exchange, and even if it's just roughing Burns up and making things uncomfortable against the fence, because, that's what he does really well. So.
Okay, I'll just get up the odds. I forgot to mention the odds. So you got Usman at 1.39 on the exchanges. I think I saw 1.4 yesterday, maybe at Pinnacle. So that's kind of the best odds you can get for Usman, and Gilbert Burns at 3.3 at William Hill. And that's the best I can see there. Most bookies are around the 3.25 mark. Look, go a bit deeper on the stand-up. You said you think it's going to be very close. Yeah, kind of explain. Can you kind of explain where each fighter you think might get a leg up?
Yeah, so I think that Burns is technically the better striker. He's got the more fluid striking game. I think he's got very slick boxing. He's got a really good kicking game, and he seems to put things together really well. And sometimes I think that Usman looks quite stiff with his striking, whether that's possibly like injuries. You know, I know he's had a lot of injuries, like back injuries, knee injuries. Perhaps like his shoulders are quite tight because he is so heavily muscled. But sometimes he does look very stiff with his strikes, and sometimes he looks a little bit out of position. But he obviously hits hard because he's had some decent finishes, and obviously he bust Colby Covington up. And you know the guy's tenacious, and you know if you're tenacious and you hit hard, and he's got a good chin, you know, and he's got good cardio. So even if maybe technically he might not be as good as Burns. Like I don't think Burns has the same tenacity and cardio and grit that he has, so that obviously could kind of even things out a little bit. But like I say, I think Burns technically is the better striker.
Okay, cool, mate. All right, let's talk betting then. I'll put my neck out on the line already, and I've already had a couple bets in this one. So I've gone. I'll just get the odds up on Odds Checker. So yesterday I bet on will the fight go the distance. I thought 1.8. I would say 1.75 and above. I think there's a bit of value there for the fight to go the distance, just because Usman is a very, very patient, safe fighter. I think all of his Colby Covington he beat in the last minute or so, but other than that, just about all of his victories are by decision, dominant decisions, but still always going to decision. And Burns is reasonably similar, but I mean, I think the only way Burns can take him out because of Usman's chin would be by like a submission, but the chances of the fight getting to the ground or him getting Usman in that kind of situation, I think, are very, very slim. And if you're looking at it from an Usman perspective, yeah, he might be able to knock out Gilbert Burns. I'm not sure if Gilbert Burns has been knocked out before by Dan Hooker. So yeah, I just think the chances of it going to decision are much better than 1.75, and I think you get 1.75 and above. I think the chances of it going to the distance are pretty good for those odds.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think the fact that the training partners, the former training partners, and also it would become, kind of similar to a sparring match. I think both guys are going to know what each other do, and I think you could kind of see like a tentative kickboxing fight for at least a few rounds with Usman kind of controlling against the clinch. So I think that's a good bet. I agree with you.
Yeah, so you can get 1.83 at Sky Bet. Obviously, I can't bet Sky Bet, so I got 1.8 yesterday at Paddy Power or Sportsbet over here. So yeah, I agree completely with what you just said. That's something I forgot to say too. Like, training all the time together, it could just turn into a sparring match. The only thing that worries me maybe is that one of them has completely dominated the other in sparring, and which you would, if considering Usman's the champion, he can kind of decide who gets the title shot. So if there was a case where someone was dominating, then it might have been Usman, and that maybe just worries me a little bit to think that Usman could just go out there and think, I know, I beat this guy, I've been training my whole career. I could just go out and smoke him. But I think that the chances of that happening, I just think are much. I think because something I like to do, at least in my betting, I don't know if you like to do, is instead of odds compiling, is percentage compiling. So just thinking in my head what percentage I think that the fight could go to distance, and you do the conversion to odds, and I just think that the chances of it going to decision are much greater than 1.83 with 1.8 that you can get in a lot of places. All right, I'll let you take it. Is there anything you wanted to say from a betting perspective too, mate?
Yeah, so I've took Burns actually. I've got Burns at 3.3, and it's just because, like I say, I just think that it could because both guys know each other, and I think that Burns is the better striker. And I also think that because Burns kind of asked for this fight as well, while Usman was the champion, Burns called him out. And I think if, like say, Usman had dominated Burns when they were training, I don't think he would have called him out. I think he would have called somebody else out, like Masvidal or Nate Diaz or something, and just gone for a money fight and just kind of left Usman at the top, similar to kind of how Cormier, when Velasquez was, heavyweight champion, Cormier didn't call him out. And like I watched an interview with him recently with Daniel Cormier, and he said like he knew that Cain Velasquez could beat him. He said that he just knew that there's almost no point. And then he said they were friends and stuff anyway, so he didn't want to fight him. But he said that first. So for me, I think that like if Burns knew that he didn't have much of a chance against Usman, I just don't think he would have gone for the fight. So it kind of says to me that he's had some success. And then Usman was the one that's also left that camp as well and gone elsewhere. And we saw when like John Jones fought Rashad Evans, it was like Evans was the one that moved out of that camp. And then like when I've just kind of looked at the skill set that Burns brings, that I think he could have some advantages. And another thing I worry about with Usman is, although I think Usman is one of like, potentially he might be better than George St. Pierre. I mean, I think he's beat guys in a more dominant fashion than St. Pierre has. Yeah. So, he could be the number one, but I just kind of worry about, the injuries that he's had. Like you said, he's got like no cartilage left in his knees, and he's talked about having quite a few injuries, and he's so tough that he kind of just goes through them. But it reminds me a little bit of Cain Velasquez, who also looked like phenomenal, like the best heavyweight we've ever seen, but then eventually kind of like his body caught up with him, and he started to lose fights and not look the same. So I think that could possibly happen to Usman at some point. So there's just a few factors there that make me like Burns. So I'm just taking Burns 3.3 or above. I think it's there's some value there, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with your last point, but I question the first point you made about why would Burns challenge him if he's being like, maybe it hasn't been like a complete beatdown, let's just say Usman beating up Burns, but like he hasn't really got much to lose, Burns. Like he has to kind of fight for the title next, doesn't he? Like there's no other real option. I think he's 34 now or something like that. And even though he might, let's just say 80% of the training sessions, Usman gets the best of him, like you take that 20% chance to go and win the title. I don't know. I just don't feel like he has that much to lose. Like he might as well go and challenge him for the title and see how he goes. And hopefully he gets Usman on an off night and maybe catches him with something. I don't know. And I don't know. I just find it so hard to bet against Usman. I just like, and the injury thing you said is really good. Like he's very fragile, but I kind of like Usman's he's just an athlete, and he looks someone to me like he still hasn't hit his peak. Like I still think he can get better.
Yeah, I mean, like he's just a winner, isn't he? Really, he's he's not going to quit. He's got that like I don't know, elite level mentality, I suppose. It's just kind of something I've seen in Burns interviews and like the confidence he's got that says to me that he's had some success, like whilst they've been training. So I don't know. I guess we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah, no, it's really intriguing, isn't it? The fact that they've been training partners their whole life. And I listened to I can't remember what podcast it was. By the way, Dan Hardy's released a podcast now, like a weekly podcast, which is really good. So people who want some more insight into like matchups, he goes through the whole card with some other fella, and it's really, really interesting. I think it might have been his podcast I was listening to. And the fact that Usman has, because Henry Hooft, I think, is like completely stepped back, the main trainer for both of them. And I don't know who Burns is training with. Obviously, like a lesser coach in Florida. But Usman's gone to what's Gaethje's coach? I've forgotten his name.
I know what you mean, but I've just forgotten his name.
He's the guy that commentates on the UFC too.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
Yeah, but he's Google it for me, mate.
I was going to say Mike Winklejohn, but it's not him. It's the other guy. What's his name?
I can't remember. Anyway, but he's one of the best coaches in MMA. So I don't know if Usman is losing too much and getting a different set of eyes could help him. But yeah,
Trevor Whitman, there you go.
Yeah, Trevor Whitman. Very, very, very interesting fight. This one, and I don't know if you had a look at the method of victory, Margaret, to this one. I think I actually bet this. I can't remember if I did, but I had a little play on Gilbert Burns by submission. I thought was really interesting. He's at 9s in a few places, and it's really interesting to see what the other bookies are doing because you look around. There's William Hill's got him at 6.5 by decision. Sky bet 7s, and you can get 9s at Paddy Power, Betfair, Boyle Sports. So
yeah, 9.9 with VBet.
VBet, the old VBet, they pop out every now and then, don't they? But I don't know. Like he hasn't got. The funny thing is, he's got elite grappling, mate, but he's never really got that many submissions. But I don't know. If he's got a path to victory, like I know that Usman's grappling or just wrestling in general is next level, but you just never know. 9s is just something I just thought I'll have a little flutter at that, and you never know what could happen. Maybe that's his, catch him in a scramble or.
Yeah, I mean, if it hurts him, Usman's going to go for a takedown, isn't he? If he clips him behind the ear, then Usman's going to dive in for a takedown. So, if he's rocked and he's hurt and he gives his neck up, then I think that's quite a good way to play it. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've got no idea what his grappling or his submission defense is like Usman because he's never been taken down. So. Unless you can remember a time maybe he was in a submission hold or something like that, but I don't think I can remember.
No,
not
that. Really.
No,
I think the only loss he does have is by submission, but I think that was right at the beginning of his career where he was just like purely a wrestler, basically, and not been training very long. So.